Hello and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video. Myself, Amata, where as always I'm here with the latest news from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. We've got a bit of a mixed bag today, lots of benchmarks to get through and a bit of a mix between Intel and AMD. And we're going to start things out with Intel and none other than the Intel Xe. So this was brought to us thanks to a tweet from Momomo, whose name you should be very familiar with. They are a well-known leaker, they are known for being pretty reliable, but what we have is a tweet of a listing on the EC. And what this shows is something we've actually seen before. Intel Xe, of course, but the lower end Intel Xe. We have a DG1, 2 editions being spotted here. We have DG1 8 plus 2 and DG1 6 plus 2. So we don't know much other than that, but these listings existing is definitely strong evidence that we're going to be learning much more about these graphics cards soon. But again, these are the lower end Intel Xes that we have seen mentioned before. So while we should take this with a pinch of salt, as per usual with anything unconfirmed by the company, the evidence for the existence of this is definitely growing. But that's not all for our Intel goodness today, my friends. We have another tweet, this time from Komachi. So what they have tweeted, once again, they are also a very well-known leaker. We have a CompuBench listing which shows the i5 9600K with Gen 12 mobile graphics controller, which is a little strange, to be honest. But that aside, it exists, this listing exists, and what information can we learn, I hear you ask? Well, if we scroll down onto the Info tab, we can see the max clock frequency is listed as 3700, so that would obviously be 3.7 gigahertz, of course. We can see 6 compute units and a bunch of other information as well. And right down the bottom, you can see the 9600 CPU at 3.7 gigahertz also mentioned as well. Now, surprisingly, we can actually see most, if not all, of the results. I think it is just two that is missing from the results page of the compute tab that we have. So you can see all of the results there on the right hand side as I scroll slowly down the page. So if you actually look at the tweet that Komachi has posted, which I will of course link in the description below, alongside Momomo's tweet on the previous topic, you can see there's a bit of discussion and question as to what this actually is. As I said, it's a little odd that it is a Intel Core 9600K with Gen 12. So there's some debate that it's, for example, you've got the retired engineer who I know Paul speaks with fairly frequently on Twitter, saying that it looks like a 9600K with a DG1 card, and there's some discussion as to what this can actually be. So we'll have to wait and see for Intel to kind of spill the beans on this one. This existence is definitely interesting, but let's wait and see until we find out more information. But that is us done with the Intel segment of this video, and we have the AMD benchmarks up next. The first of all is going to be Threadripper. So we have a Geekbench version 5 listing here, and you can see that this is a Threadripper 3960X running on a Gigabyte TRX 40 Aorus Extreme motherboard. So we can learn quite a bit of information from this listing. This is of course not the flagship of the Threadripper 3000, this is the 24 core 48 thread part, and we can see the base frequency of 3.8 gigahertz. But of course we can also see those all important scores. And we can see a single core score of 1294 and a multi-core score of 2484. And I've hopefully provided the link to the listing in the description below this video, and if you add .gb5 onto the end of the URL, there is much more information to be gleaned about this particular processor. However, we also have something else as well, as someone helpfully responded to Momomo's tweet with a comparison that they put together, and once again on Geekbench version 5. So what we have here is the 3960X, of course, going up against the i9 10980XE from Intel. So just in terms of specs, we've got the 3960X at 3.8 GHz with 24 cores, 48 threads, versus the 1080XE at 3 GHz with 18 cores and 36 threads. So in terms of the results, the Threadripper CPU is actually ahead. So it is pretty close in single core, I will say. It's slightly squeaked out a lead is how I would phrase it. So we see a single core score for the Intel processor of 1257, and for the Threadripper processor we see 1294. Again, just squeaking past that lead there. In terms of multi-core score, the lead on AMD side is much more prevalent. We see 13480 on Intel side and 20484 on AMD side. But of course, there is much more information, as you can see as I'm scrolling down. They've got all sorts of individual tests, and AMD is in the lead in a lot of them, but there are some where the 10980XE is actually overtaking the Threadripper part. So interesting that something that's not even the flagship is actually managing to beat out Intel's 10980. Now again, this is just a single benchmark. It can't be taken in a vacuum. There's obviously more to each processor than just what this this benchmark is testing. So let's wait to see what happens in terms of reviews, and a wider variety of benchmarks is definitely needed before we can call it one way or the other. But it's definitely impressive that Threadripper is actually beating out the 10980XE from Intel. Just goes to show you that yes, Intel have very much been stepping up their efforts to kind of claw back the market share and the lead and the goodwill that AMD have generated with Ryzen, both on the Threadripper and obviously desktop end. But AMD are not exactly just going to sit on their laurels and let them do that. They are still coming out swinging with stuff like Threadripper 3000. And again, this is not the flagship version, so it's going to be interesting nonetheless to see how these processors do once they're out in the wild. But let's finish off today's proceedings with a brief visit to console land, as we have some comments from Phil Spencer regarding Project Scarlett. So we've been talking a lot about the PS5 and obviously a potential handheld console for the system and all this, but been fairly quiet on the Scarlett front. But Phil Spencer has had some things to say in an interview published by The Verge. Of course, you can find their full interview linked in the description below this video. So, I have talked at length, and I still plan on doing a video on this, especially once we're done with this generation, and how Phil Spencer have rescued the Xbox One, because it was not doing well at launch, and it took a long time for them to kind of course correct from that disastrous start. But it seems they may have learned from their mistakes, at least according to what Phil said in this interview. So he said, quote, "I would say a learning from the Xbox One generation is we will not be out of position on power or price. If you remember the beginning of this generation, we were $100 more expensive, and yes, we were less powerful. And we started Project Scarlett with this leadership team in place with a goal of having market success. We had the discussion years ago. Do we want to do another generation? Yes. And do we think there will be multiple generations ahead of us? I actually think there probably is. So we're going all in. We're going all in on Project Scarlett, and I want to compete, and I want to compete in the right ways, which is why we're focused on crossplay and backwards compatibility. So obviously, time will tell. Now, Microsoft are undoubtedly being honest and truthful here, or Phil is, sorry, should I say. But obviously, Sony could kind of surprise them. They could make them think, oh, we're going to sell it for this price, but actually, we're going to sell it for this price, which is $50 cheaper, or something silly. I'm just saying, we shouldn't hold it against them if something like that ends up happening. But I do hope we don't see that big gap, because obviously, the Xbox One, it has been good for Microsoft. It has been successful. They're not exactly, crying on the street corner with their hat in their hands, but it has been absolutely stomped by Sony the whole generation. Like, the start did not help, but by the time Microsoft recovered from that, I think it might have been too late. The damage was done, and even if they were able to fully recover from this, and I think they did a damn good job at resurrecting the console after that absolutely just awful launch. But there was, just a lack of games, to be honest, and that's the main thing. It became a bit of a meme that there's nothing to play on the Xbox One. If you've got a PC or a PS4, you're pretty much set, right? I mean, obviously, it depends. If you've got your exclusives like Halo and Gears, for instance, then obviously you get an Xbox One. But outside of those, if you're like me and those games are just not really super your thing, what reason do you have to buy an Xbox One if you already have a PC? And the answer is not any, really. So, obviously, Microsoft have been extremely aggressive with buying up studios, and they've made it clear they are not making that same mistake again. So Phil Spencer also discussed this as well, and he also had an interview with Eurogamer, which again will be linked below. And apparently Microsoft are now looking specifically at Asian developers, since there are currently none at Xbox Game Studios. And he said, "I look at the geographic diversity of our studios. I love the fact that we now have 3 studios here in the UK. You can go back decades. You could argue the UK is as strong as any country in terms of its impact on the history of video games. I love that we're here in such strength. Now we have studios in Canada, studios in other parts of the US. I think we have a hole in Asia. I've said that both to Matt and publicly. I would love to have more of an influence in our own first-party team from Asian creators. There's something that's imminent, so it's not a pre-announce of something. But if you just plotted where we are on the map with our first party, there's a real opportunity for us. I love the fact that we can stand here and announce Yakuza and Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy coming. That's through third-party relationships which take time, and we've been really focused on that. But I think we can have stronger first-party creation capability there. We have in the past, and I think we should again." And he also alluded to in the interview that they are just not slowing down anytime soon. They are getting a lot of developers interested, even if it's not for exclusivity deals. It could be timed exclusivity deals, or potentially getting them on the system where they might not have been previously. You know, both companies have been really good about getting indie games on their system, I will say. So I am just genuinely quite excited for this generation. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to watch. We're going to see a potentially huge increase in performance and obviously frame rate on console, which is something I've banged on about basically since the dawn of time. And hopefully we're just going to see more interesting games come out because of this, and obviously the ray tracing implementation as well. With Microsoft buying up all these studios, just what are they going to put out? Are they really going to push, or attempt to push, the Scarlett as the system for next gen? We'll of course have to wait and see, but I think it's safe to say that E3 next year is going to be very, very interesting. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, your support is highly appreciated. Do remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It does help out a great deal, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.